Okay, yesterday, for fun, we had someone call in the middle of my video. So this one's going to be broken into two, just for this same lesson. So this is part two of structure, part one. So we talked a little bit about story structure, and we reviewed, just to review, we talked about how structure is a selection of events from the character's life story or whatever that we're composing into a sequence. So when I tell a story, am I going to tell you, like let's say Harry Potter, did it start with Harry Potter being born? Harry Potter was born. No. And then he took his first steps at the age of 4. What? 4? What? No, 4 months. No, wait, what? Okay. No, it doesn't start with any of that, because is any of that relevant to the story?
No. Nope. No.
Now, there may be some things that are relevant to the story, like the fact that the reason he has that scar is because his parents protected him from Voldemort, right? So Voldemort couldn't kill him. Okay, his mother. So that's relevant, but it's not told to you at the beginning, right? So story structure is a selection of events from their life that are composed into a sequence that the writer is doing intentionally so that we can express a specific view of life and elicit certain emotions. So we're putting them in a certain order for a reason. So does that mean they always need to be in chronological order?
No.
Do I have to start at the beginning and work my way forward? Not always, right? Sometimes I can do flashbacks of information that I don't want you to know yet. Maybe the character themselves doesn't know it. So Harry Potter himself doesn't know what his scar means. He doesn't know what his parents died doing, right?
Yep.
Until later he finds out. He finds out when the reader finds out. But then there are other things that maybe he knows that we don't know yet. Like frequently, in a lot of my books anyway, but in a lot of other books, the character will already know something. It's called backstory, but the reader doesn't know it yet. So the reader may know.
Like in Marked, I'm a big fat coward.
Right, and you don't really understand why she thinks she's a coward, right? Or there's another one where obviously my main character in Finding Cupid knows, Geo knows that her fiance died, but the reader doesn't know for a long time. They just know she hates weddings. They don't know why she won't plan a wedding. She's an event planner who won't plan weddings, right? And you don't know why. You find out why, okay? So sometimes you can use those things to propel people forwards. Sometimes you don't want to reveal it yet because you want it to have more impact later. So those are things you want to think about when you're writing your story, okay? We talked about how an event is something that creates meaningful change in the life situation of the character. So we said, okay, if eating a piece of pizza is not an event usually. I mean, it's something that happened, but it doesn't really create meaningful change unless that character is allergic to something there and they're trying to punish their mother. Then it's a story event that has meaningful change because it's going to send them to the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll force their mom to actually listen to them or something, right? So story values, okay, those are universal. You don't have to write it down yet. I want you guys to listen. Story values are universal qualities of human experience that may shift positive to negative or negative to positive from one moment to the next. What do I mean by that?
You mean like...
So what would a story value be, Eli? Any ideas? When I say it's a universal quality of human experience that may shift positive to negative or negative to positive one moment to the next. Okay, if you don't know, that's all right. Let me give you guys some examples, okay? A story value might be, I have a job and working is good. I think working is good. You certainly need to have income in order to pay your bills so you can eat and have a place to live and all of that, right? So an example of a story value that could shift would be I am employed. But let's say I hate my job. I think most people, so we're talking universal value, universal qualities, right? Most people would say, oh, it's really too bad if you hate your job. There are a lot of people that don't love their job, but if you really hate it, that's too bad because that means that what you have to go in and do every day to earn money to be able to live, you don't like doing, right? Mm-hmm. So what if, in fact, if you take Friends, which you two haven't seen, but you guys have seen this, there's a character on Friends named Chandler and he hates his job, okay? He hates it. But it was a job that he found and it pays the bills and he's been doing it long enough that now he makes quite a bit of money at it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a universal quality to say, well, I hate my job, but I need money. And so I make good money there, so I'm just sticking with it. So then what could you do in a scene? So, well, we got to story value. So now I'll go to the next one, okay? So a story value would be something like you have to work or you should like your job. Those are values. It's a value statement, right? If I say you should like your job, my dad raised me to believe you get paid for work because it's work. You don't have to like it, just do it. And dad told me that his family was raised the same way. So my dad, I don't think ever liked his job. I don't know if he always hated it. Sometimes he hated it when he had a lousy boss. I don't know that he hated his job, but he felt like you got paid to work because it was not fun. So just suck it up, buttercup, and do it, right? So some people would disagree with me saying, it's terrible if you don't like your job. Your job should be fulfilling and wonderful. Other people would say, absolutely, that's true. So it's a value because people can agree with it or disagree with it, and it has a positive or negative. When I say it has a positive or negative, I mean, if I say you should love your job, then loving your job would be a good thing and hating your job would be a bad thing. So that value itself has a positive and negative. It's also a concept that people can agree with or disagree with. Does that make sense? Or do you guys need another example?
Could you like tell me what to write or something?
I'll help you guys write down notes in a minute if you want. But what I would write on story values is I would say universal quality, in the human experience. That can go positive or negative. It helps me to have examples. So if I needed examples, then I would write down the job one. So I would say, you should love your job. That would be a story value. And I'll give you guys another story value just to make sure that we kind of understand what this is. Okay, so one example would be you should love your
What's
job.
after negative?
Well, positive or negative was the end of that definition. But then I was saying if you want to give an example, you could say an example was you should love your job. Another example is you should never trust anyone. That's someone who trusted somebody and got burned, probably, right? Mm-hmm. And so over the course of the story, that could be reinforced because they could see other people trusting people and they could get burned, or it could be disputed, right? Like they could actually see people relying on other people and that person coming through for them, and they could say, "Gosh, my life would be a lot easier if I trusted anyone."
And they trust the
Or
wrong person.
They could trust the wrong person, or they could trust the right person, and that person could save them, right? So so these are like story values. Could be a lot of different things. They could be big things. They could be little things. It could be pets are wonderful and make your life happy.
True.
In some ways, pets are horrible and they ruin your life, right? They pee on your carpet. You can't go on vacation. If you run over one in your car, you're devastated and sad, and your whole week is ruined. Maybe your month, right? So.
And that's the pet's fault?
Well, I'm just telling you, there's a downside to it. A lot of people, one story value is love is better than anything. Love is so important. But the downside to that is, let's say you love somebody and they get cancer and die. Well, now, you've put yourself out there, right? You've loved somebody and you've been hurt by it, okay? So, or if you love someone and they leave you, you're exposing yourself to a lot of risk and a lot of pain by loving somebody. So some people's solution to that, if they get injured by either their parents or a loved one or a spouse, their solution is to not love anybody. Because if they're completely alone, they can't be hurt by anybody. That's their thought. But they're also not getting, so these are values. Do you guys understand what I mean when I say that? You could argue for it, you could argue against it. They're common ideas and concepts that we all kind of believe and kind of don't, and we may be high on that idea or not on that idea. And someone may feel like, yes, that is the truth. Or as things happen to them, they may say, oh no, maybe that's not true, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So a story event is a situation that causes meaningful change in a character. A situation, a story event. Did you get the name? It's a story event. A story event is a situation that causes meaningful change in a character. Okay, in a character. And that change happens through conflict. So I would put a little note that says, I'm going to write it for you, okay? I'm going to write, the change happens through conflict. So let's talk about what I mean by that, okay? We could take any of those examples. I've been listing lots of examples. Does one of you want to pick one? And I'll use that. Let's do the job one because that was the first one, okay? So we said a story value was the universal quality of human experience that can go positive or negative, right? A story event takes that story value and it creates a meaningful change in the life situation, and it happens through conflict. So let's say you have a character and they hate their job and they feel like, well, you work to get money, so it doesn't really matter if I like my job or not, right? So they're just working away at their job. But then what happens? Their employer comes in and says, I'm really, really sorry, but we've had layoffs and I'm going to have to let you go. They've lost their job. So now we have conflict because that person has what?
No job.
But they have a choice, right? I want to hammer into you guys. If we're talking conflict, we're talking a choice. They have a choice to make. What choice do you think is facing this person right now? If I say they lost their job and now they have a choice, what's their choice?
Similar to that job because
So they need to find a new job, right? And they don't like their job. And they think it doesn't matter that they don't like their job because you work to get paid. But now they've lost the job that they had, that they were probably never going to leave. So the question is, do they look for another job just like it? Or do they look for their dream job, right? So that's their choice. And let's say they decide to try for their dream job instead. There are a ton of things you can do with that as a story event. So one story event would be them losing their job and how do they react to it, right? They might be depressed, they might be happy, they might be sad, they might be scared. So you show that, okay? And then you show what are their next steps so they make their choice, okay? So losing their job. Now, would it be meaningful change if they just said, oh, well, I have a really good experience level in this field, so I'll just look for another job just exactly like this one?
Nope.
Probably didn't provide meaningful change. So maybe they need to lose their job in a certain way, so they decide to try for something. Maybe they need to have someone who they care about in their life tell them that it's stupid for them to think that it doesn't matter whether they like their job. I don't know. But you have to have something come in to that story event that makes them want to try something different, right? Maybe they even have a fallback job. Someone's offered them a job and the same thing. They've got a competitor that's been offering them a job over and over, so they could easily take that call. But instead, they listen to their brother, their mother, their sister, their friend, or that internal voice, whatever it is that makes them say, even though I run a fast food chain, I have always wanted to be a horse trainer. I don't know anything about horses, but I've always wanted to do that. And now that I've lost my job and I have a severance package, this is my opportunity to try to live my dream, right? Or maybe I want to be a fashion designer and I need to move to New York. I don't know. Okay, so those are all, you see how that's a story event that results in meaningful change. For it to be meaningful change, you need to have some choices that they make. Now, so the story event is created through conflict. So then, let's say they go to apply for the job and something goes wrong and it's horrible and they know they're not going to get the job because they botched something, their dream job that they're now up for, they screwed up. They, had lipstick on their teeth and talked to the guy on and on and on. They were so nervous in the interview, all they could do was talk about their dog or something. I don't know. They did something goofy, okay? And then they have to do something to fix it, right? They have to go in with an impassioned speech about how this is their dream job, and even though they flubbed it and they messed everything up, they should still give them a chance.
And then the employer says no.
And then they have to go to someone else. I don't know. But that's the point, right? Like a story is a sequence of conflict and problems. They have to make decisions, and then they have to solve those problems. And sometimes they fail. Right? Okay, so then let's go to the next one. A scene, because what I said is we're going to kind of define conflict, right? Okay, a scene is action through conflict. So we'll write this one down. Let's see, did you write down story event? A story event. So let's underline that so we can find it. And we can go back and underline the other ones in a minute. Okay, a scene is action through conflict. Okay, a scene is action through conflict, and then I'm going to give you some specifications on it, okay? It's in a given time and space, so usually a scene will take place in a spot, like we're in our backyard or whatever, and it turns a value-charged condition. So I'm going to call this, a scene should always have a turn. So let's talk about what a turn is. we talked about the values, right? We talked about story values, and we said story values are qualities of human experience that can go positive to negative. Each scene should shift some kind of value. It doesn't have to be a big value, okay? So we talked about the theme of the book, okay? We haven't talked a lot about character motivations or the character's misunderstanding yet. We're going to work on that once we have an understanding of structure. So part of this may be going over your head a little bit. Are you confused? No? Okay, good. So each scene should have a turn. When I say a turn, does anyone have any ideas of what I mean?
Maybe
Yeah.
like a twist in the story, like it turns out your mother was a drug dealer.
So that's a gap, and we'll get to that, okay? So you're getting ahead, that's a different thing. A turn specifically relates to that value that we were talking about. So when we're talking about at the beginning of the thing, she thinks she doesn't like her job, but it pays the bills, and it doesn't matter whether she likes it, right? Maybe she's thought about quitting her job 1,000,000 times because her boss is horrible, but she just can't do it, you know, because she knows it doesn't really matter. She's had it hammered into her by her parents or her mom or somebody that a job is to get money and you have to be safe, okay? There could be a lot of reasons why she has that belief, right? We'll talk about it later. It's a character misconception. We'll talk about those. But for whatever reason, she has that character belief. You need to flip something in her life that changes it. Now, it doesn't have to change her overarching character belief. But let's say her overarching character belief is no matter what, you have to have a job and you have to have income and you don't want to take risks because that's stupid. Maybe her parents couldn't pay the bills and they were always driving from place to place. So she lives in terrible fear that she's not going to have a place to live or be able to pay her bills, right? That's her underlying character misconception, you know, that it's not okay to ever have anything scary happen, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say that's it. Now we take tiny little values there, right? So doesn't matter if you like your job. That's one little thing, right? So you may have several different scenes that take her from it doesn't matter if you like your job to deciding that it does matter if you like your job. And then maybe she has to decide that what her risk tolerance is. Like how much would she really do to get a new job? Does she just want a job she doesn't hate, or does she want a job that she loves? What if she's not good at it? Then what does she do? How does she regroup? Who can she rely on? There's a lot of different things you can talk about, but one story value, I don't need to like my job. You can turn that in a scene, right? You can change her from, maybe she just meets somebody. Maybe she's at a party and she meets someone. That could literally be a value turn, because she could be at a party and meet somebody who says, you hate your job? I love my job and I do better at it because I like it so much. And so then I don't have to just check in, do a couple hours and check out, right? So a turn is a change, a meaningful change in that person's value set somehow, okay? So let's say, going with the job theme, that you have a parent and they like their job and it's fine, and they get another even better job that they would love, but it's in another state. And they have a kid. And so they think, I don't want to uproot my child and go to another state with this job, even though I love that job, because I don't want to uproot my child. But then they end up, through some sequence of events, this would be the scene, finding out that their child hates their school and would be really excited at the possibility of moving to Montana or something, okay? So that would be a turn. Is that exciting and something big happened? Not necessarily. A lot of times a value turn can just be something that you learn or understand that's changed, okay? It can be big, like, hey, you lost your job. It can be big, like, hey, you got a job offer. But that itself, that event that happened, isn't the turn. The turn is a change in their belief or their values or what they think. Does that make sense? Do you understand? Okay. So ideally, every scene is a story event. So every chapter that you read should be a story event. There should be something that happens that is changing the value, one value, from positive to negative or negative to positive. Something should happen in every scene that is emotional, okay? So if you have a scene where nothing changes, it probably needs to be deleted. So I'll give you guys an example of this. The first book I ever wrote, it was horrible. And I didn't understand conflict. And I didn't understand any of that. But I had written this scene, and I had several people who read the book. And do you know what they said to me? When I asked them, did you get bored in any parts? I think they were trying to be nice. But everybody mentioned the same part. And it was one of my favorite chapters. Do you know what happened in that chapter? My main character, who had some problems, had this little... It was probably 15 pages where she went into town to get some new clothes. And on the way, she found this guy who had a horse. And she loved that horse. And he was beautiful. And he loved her and thought she was wonderful. And they had this connection. And then she got this great, amazing horse. She then rode the horse in the story. But was there a conflict?
No.
No. Was there a big choice that needed to be made? No, she needed a horse. Was there anything at all? It was a conflict or an emotional value turn or anything that happened?
No.
Nope. It was just something that happened. I could have summed up that entire chapter with, I grabbed a horse when I got some new clothes and I really like him. His name is Fabulous. Okay. But instead, no, I just made that. I don't remember what it was. It was a long time ago. So instead, I wrote this big long thing. People had to slog their way through 15 pages of Bridget Baker's wish fulfillment in order to read about how they got this wonderful horse that loved her. But that's boring. And it's boring for two reasons. We'll talk about the gap and we'll talk about the turn. But the main reason is that there's no emotional impact one way or the other of getting something. So if I were to write a whole chapter where a character is told that she's beautiful and does a fabulous job at a ball, that would not be relevant to anybody. They would be like, oh, okay, why am I reading this? But if that character has always been told from the time she was born by her mother that she's a hideous pariah and no one likes her, and then she goes to a ball and everyone tells her how beautiful she is, then there is an emotional impact, something that she believed is being changed. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So sort of like I was giving you guys earlier, there are things that are completely irrelevant and don't matter. Eli eating a piece of pizza, who cares? Eli eats a piece of pizza at least once a week. Usually a whole medium pizza once a week. So him eating pizza is not noteworthy. It wouldn't be a scene in a book. Unless that eating the pizza had some other meaning. Right?
Yeah, unless he poisoned the pizza.
Right. So that's what I'm looking for, is the emotional, the emotional change that takes place during writing. So let's talk about your assignment for this one, because this one got really long. So your assignment for this one is to, in the book that you read for your book report, but this is separate. You're going to do your book report anyway. But I want you guys to do this for Thursday, which means you have to do it today.
What?
Pick a chapter or two chapters if you want to be a Gold Star student. Pick a chapter and read that chapter. If it's a picture book, it'd be the whole book. I want you to tell me what the value change is. I want you to identify these things. Ready? Item number 1. What is the value? What is the value?
I just wrote value.
Yep. And then tell me, number 2, what is the story event? And then tell me, number 3, did the author do a good job? Was there meaningful change? Did you care about what happened in that chapter? I gotta go get Sammy. Okay? I would love it. Eli and Dora, you need to do that for at least 2 chapters. Emmy and Tessa, you can just do 1. Well, you're reading them anyway. So just pick, it could be ones that you read yesterday. It's for this week's book. Okay? Or if you don't want to do this week's book, pick a picture book. Read the whole picture book and tell me what the value change was, because there will be one, okay? So as one last example, in my book, Yuck, What's for Dinner, okay, which is the little children's picture book, what is the original belief? The original belief for Max is what? Max the dung beetle.
Dung beetles have to eat dung.
Well, no, that's the mom. Max's original belief is, why would I have to eat poop? Poop is disgusting,
Poop
right?
is yucky.
His value is poop is gross and I don't want to eat it. His mom's is, you are a dung beetle, and dung beetles need to eat poop, right? And over the course of the book, Max comes to believe that he wants to make his mom happy, right? He wants to be like her. He wants to eat dung, but he keeps trying. He doesn't like any of it, right? So did his value change? In some ways it did, because he wants to make her happy. But in some ways it didn't, because he still doesn't like poo, right? But what is the major shift in that book?
His mom.
His mom. So his willingness and sadness about not doing what she needed, his willingness to change, forced his mother to reevaluate her position. She did some research and found out that dung beetles can eat stuff that isn't poop, right? And so there is a significant change to his life. Instead of having to eat something he hates, his mom met him in the middle and said, I will find you some things that are healthy that you can eat that aren't what I eat, and it's okay if you're different than me, right? So you can, if you don't want to do the book that you're reading for your book report, pick something else. But Eli and Dora need to do 2, and Emmy and Tessa can do 1. Okay? All right.